With the Democratic Congressman who joins us now, Subramanyam, who's from the state of Virginia. It represents a district, by the way, with a number of federal workers, from what I understand. And we mentioned at the top of the hour, in addition to all this news about tariffs, I'd like to get your view on that, too. We might have this federal judge ruling up in Boston on the buyouts, right? So we'll see how that goes. It was paused until today. But what's the conversation been like in your district here over the last week or so?
Yeah, there's been a lot of confusion in general. I mean, this has been pretty unprecedented to see a buyout offer like that. A lot of people, frankly, don't trust it. The ones who are taking it are people who were probably going to retire anyway or had plans to soon. And my concern is that there's going to be a brain drain in the federal civil service because we're losing the best people who have private sector options right now. And that expertise and that experience is not exactly easy to replace. And so that's my concern. And I know a lot of people in the civil service, the ones who are staying, in some cases are staying because they want to see their project keep going and they care about their project. But if we start losing some of these good workers, it could really affect us for many years to come.
So that's an interesting kind of analysis of it, because a lot of what we heard to this point was, well, I'm not necessarily objecting to the fact that we need to cut back some in the federal government. I just don't like the how. I'll put up numbers. I have them on my tablet here about Elon Musk and DOGE and what people think of what they're doing. How much government influence should Musk have was what the poll question asked. And you see, if you add up, the first two, a lot and some, you're in kind of the mid-60s right there. So, a lot of people, majority of the people say, hey, we're okay with him having some influence. But then what we've heard is people don't like the way necessarily that he's going about it. But you're saying maybe it's even more than that.
Oh, absolutely. I think, you guys just talked about USDA doing research on bird flu.
Yeah.
What if USDA wasn't giving those funds for bird flu research, right? How would that affect the health and safety of our country? I talked to one person in my district who said that they do work on invasive species that could decimate crops in our country. And, if they decimate those crops because we didn't do the research or didn't do the work, that could affect us for many, many years to come. And so I want to make sure that we're keeping our country safe and healthy. And part of that is the work that we do and the funding that we do. That's not really easy and easily to see at first, but has unintended consequences when you cut it.
Now, Musk, though, in general, I guess the president as well, but Musk in particular has put the Democrats in a spot now where it seems to me that, at least, that they're trying to figure out a way to kind of counter this. Obviously, a minority party in both houses of the Congress. How much can you fight back? How much do you just have to leave to the courts? I saw this, we'll put it up from The Guardian, that the Democrats in the House, you're part of the House, I don't think you're part of this quote-unquote task force, but they've created a task force to focus on Trump. They're calling it a multifaceted struggle to protect and defend everyday Americans from the harm being inflicted by this administration. Okay, but how? How do you do that? And what options do you really have other than, showing up at buildings, trying to kind of make a scene? Is there much you can really do?
Well, two things. One, a lot of what's happening is not legal. I mean, I did some of the work myself on trying to make government better and more efficient. I worked in the Obama administration doing that using technology. And one of the things that was frustrating to me during that time was, I wish I could just have my way and be dictator and do whatever I wanted to. But in the end, we had protocols, we had processes and laws in place for a reason. We respected and worked with Congress to do a lot of that work, and it was successful and bipartisan. And what's happening now is I'm seeing that the folks in the DOGE commission, or whatever you want to call it,
right,
they're actually not following the rules.
Well, they're going
laws,
past the Congress in many cases.
That's the first fight.
So that leaves it to the courts, right?
Yeah, and they've stepped on our authority in other cases. Exactly. You can't get rid of an agency, for instance, that we expressly put into law. And so, and if we appropriated and authorized funding, they can't take that away unilaterally, right? And so the first fight is in the legal sector. The second is in the court of public opinion, because the reality is I've seen, whether it's the federal freeze or other situations, when people realize that the impact that it'll have on them and their family, they do push back. And I think this administration does take a step back and does respond to that. And so I've told people to speak up, stand up, share your stories. We set up a website for people to share their stories with us because we have so many federal workers. And I think that's ultimately going to be successful as well.
All right, we're going to watch closely for anything that comes out of that Boston federal courtroom this afternoon. Thank you, Congressman. Thanks.